GettingPositiveKarmaNow.com presents Bhagavad Gita for All, lectures by Nalan K. Narula, recorded in front of a live audience.
Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Om Jnanam Timirandasya Jnananjanan Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta. So last time we had completed text 19 of chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, and today we will continue from text 20 of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This is about nature and consciousness, the field of activity. And in the 19th text, Lord Krishna has summarized. Previously we had studied 20 points of nature, and in text 10, text 8 through 12, the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. And then ultimately he has said that he has talked about Brahma, the eternal, and the spirit, and the super soul. And he's talked about the nature of the divine himself, that the hands and legs, eyes and faces are everywhere in terms of the Paramatma aspect of the divine. That is Param over the Atma, which is the individual knower of the field. And the Paramatma is the unlimited knower of all fields, of all activities, of all things, of all living entities. and that the truth is existing internally and externally, in the moving, in the unmoving, beyond the power of the material senses, and also the fact that although he is very far away, he is very near. And even though he may appear to be divided, he is never divided. He is situated as one and appears in many. He is the maintainer, destroyer, and originator of all things, of all living entities. He is the source of all knowledge, of light, beyond darkness, and he is unmanifested. He is the object of knowledge, the goal of knowledge, and situated in everyone's heart. So these he has described as the fields of activity, the body, knowledge, the knowable, and that only those who are his devotees can actually understand this and attain to his nature. And the process has been given of chanting the divine names which are purifying to each individual, and various studies of knowledge and understanding as we are doing today. So then we have text 20 of the 13th chapter. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidhi anadi ubhav api vikaramscha gunamschaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. It should be understood that the material nature and the living entities are without a beginning. They have no beginning. They are unborn. They always existed. And Vikaran is the transformation. Vikaramscha gunamschaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. That their transformations and the modes of matter, prakriti, material nature, are the products, the modes, that is the gunas, are arising from the material nature. Now there are few things that we need to understand here. First of all, Prakriti or nature is not something that is coming from something else prior to it. It has no cause except the divine. They are both the natures or the expansions of the divine. Prakriti is the external separated nature of the divine, whereas the jiva, the living entity, is the internal separated nature of the divine. The gunas are the separated superior energy of the divine. So there are a number of things to be understood. The three material modes of nature, the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, are the binding aspects of living entities. So the nature of goodness or sattva, if one is inclined towards that nature, that means that one has some reverence, some knowledge, some understanding, and therefore some respect for the divine, and whatever else are the expansions of that understanding. And that leads to moksha or liberation from the material universe. The mode of passion, which is rajas gun, is what creates attachment and desire. And that keeps us bound in the material universe. The mode of ignorance, tamas, the goal of sense enjoyment, coupled with the ignorance of one's true nature and the nature of the universe and the nature of the divine, is what brings one down to lower life forms. So it's a de-evolutionary process. So one can go from demigod to human being, to animal, to insect, to plant, bacteria. So these are all lower forms, where the consciousness is progressively more ignorant of its true nature. So as you will associate with the three modes of nature, you will be inspired accordingly. The material nature is the provisioning of where the living entity actually acts. So the material nature is the field in which the living entity acts. So all unhappiness, happiness, joy, pain is coming from the living entity only. Nature doesn't do it. So it is our own interaction, it is our own karma, it is our own doing that creates happiness and unhappiness, distress, sorrow, all those things. So this has to be clearly understood, that how the individual living entity is transforming into different bodily forms, and there he has no option but to act according to the body. That is, the nature is controlling that. So it is a very rare birth to be born in the human form, and the human form of life is not to be so easily dismissed or thought of as unimportant in terms of what you do with it, in terms of the actions of the material modes that you engage with. So at any given time we are engaging with all the three modes, but which one is predominant? And if you have the akarmic energy of working with the various activities that you do, that gradually liberates you, because those are in the nature of Shuddha Sattva or purified goodness, which will, the spiritual energy is purified goodness. Your activities in that energy are purified goodness. So that will then liberate you. So we can consider that the living entity is a separated part of the potency of the divine, which has life, whereas the nature is elemental and it is not having life as such. It is not manifest. But of course the Supreme as Paramatma is there at the center of every atom. So that is his presence everywhere. So that is a different thing. So it is clearly to be understood that it is the bodily nature that makes one different. But internal nature is the same, whether you are in a bacteria or in a plant or an animal or a demigod body or a human body. Then we have text 21. Karya karana kartritve hetu prakritir uchyate purusha sukha dukhanam bhoktrave hetur uchyate. Karya karana kartritve. So effect and cause and effect. Karya is cause. Karya is effect and Karana is cause. So actually this is the correct sequence of understanding. Normally we talk about cause and effect, but actually it is effect and cause. Because the effect is in front of you, the cause is prior. So technically this is the correct way to understand effect and cause. And this effect becomes the cause for some future effect. So effect is the thing that you are facing at the present moment of anything, and prior to that is a cause which in turn was an effect of some prior cause, and this effect will be in turn the cause of something else. So karya karana kartritve, in the matter of creation, the material nature is said to be the instrument, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in the world. So if you take these two shlokas together, 20 and 21, it is very clear. Two things are very clear. That one is that the living entity is always constantly the same in its nature of blissfulness, but it has been captured by the inferior nature because of the living entity's association with the various modes of nature. So it is also explained that this is the rebellious nature, or it is the nature of wanting to enjoy separately from the divine as an independent controller entity. So for that one comes to the material world. So sukha dukhanam bhoktritve hetu uchyate. So the material nature is the cause of material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of all suffering. So the combination of the two is creating a problem. So if one is in a particular body, he has no choice. He has no choice but to act according to the nature of that body. So that is clarified in text 22. Purusha prakriti stho hi bhonkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sango asya sad asad yoni janvasu. The living entity is situated in the material energy, and he certainly enjoys the three material modes of nature. And this is coming from his association with the modes of material nature, the good and the bad that he finds in various species of life. So this is a very, you can say, harmonious explanation as to how the material universe is coming into being and how the individual goes from one body to another body. And he is at the same time following the nature of that body. So for example, a dog has no other option but to act like a dog, right? Human being has the possibility of not acting like a dog, right? But still sometimes they do. So then if they are associating with that nature in terms of sense enjoyment, then they will also go to that bodily form. So this is the danger. So when you are associating with the right modes of material nature and the spiritual nature, then you gradually get liberation from these dangers. Okay. So this is very clear that there should be no confusion on this at all. And if we look at text 23, Krishna goes on to say in text 23 of chapter 13, Upadrashtanumananta cha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramatmeti chapi ukto dehe asmin purusha para. Upadrashta numanta. Upadrashta, the person who is seeing. Anumanta, one who is permitting. And Bharta is the master. And Bhokta, Maheshwara, who is the enjoyer. So the overseer, the one who is the witness, the permitter or the director, and the master and the supreme enjoyer is Maheshwara, the supreme Lord. So Maheshwara refers to Lord Krishna as the super soul, Paramatma, because it is said Maheshwara Paramatma. Paramatma iti cha apyukta dehe asmin purusha para. So it is said that this supreme proprietor, owner, transcendental enjoyer, permission giver, is known also as the Paramatma, the super soul. So he is actually the ultimate enjoyer of everything. The living entity may enjoy a little bit, but the supreme super soul, Paramatma, is the supreme enjoyer of everything. He is beyond the modes of material nature, he is above them. But he is the controller and he sanctions various things. And whichever bodily form the individual goes to, he is the only friend that will go with that individual into whichever body that exists. Whether it is the animal body, it is an insect body, or some other body. Text 24 of 13th chapter. Ya evam veti purusham prakritim cha gunai saha sarvatha vartamano api na sa bhuyo abhijayate. So anyone who understands this about material nature, about the living entities and the modes of nature, that person is definitely, undoubtedly going to get liberation regardless of his present position, regardless of where he may be at that point in time. Vartamana, present moment situated. In spite of being situated in whatever situation he will nasa bhuya abhijayate. He will not take birth again in this material universe. So that is something that we really need to understand. So it is important to understand this philosophy not only in terms of the technical, theoretical aspect of it, but the practical aspect in terms of applying it to your life. So text 20 to 23 tells us how we should approach this understanding. So the understanding, again to summarize, is that the living entity and the material nature are both eternal, and they are unborn. The living entity is unborn. When the material universe is wound up, it goes back into the body of Vishnu, and it stays there, and then according to the desires of the living entity, they are again reborn in a body which is suitable to fulfill their desires. So in one sense you can say that this is a wish fulfilling universe, but it comes with a downside also. It depends what you wish for, you might get it. So you will get the most appropriate body. So you have to be careful what kind of a body you want. If you want a body that is designed for sense enjoyment, then you will descend into that kind of form, because the more gross sense enjoyment is possible only through animalistic form. So the more animalistic nature is there, the more sense enjoyment is there. And the less animalistic nature is there, the more elevated and lack of gross material sense enjoyment is there, because now the enjoyment factor is transferred to the spiritual. So when there is an attachment to the spiritual, gradually all the material defects are removed, and we go away from the tamas aspect, which is ignorance, and that ignorance is coming from a desire to enjoy the senses. And as we discussed, and material attachment is coming from rajogun, and the sattvic gun is what is liberating. So if you pay attention to these aspects, you will begin to understand how this works, because anything you are desiring at that moment is known to the Lord directly. So he is not far away, he is simultaneously present here through his Paramatma expansion, and he is all knowing at all times. So it is inconceivable how this happens, but it does happen. So it is the only friend that you actually have. Everybody else who appears in any kind of relationship is temporary, always. This is the only permanent relationship beyond the body, beyond all bodies that you would have. Okay. So the key promise here is that if you actually understand it, understanding this means acting upon it, you are never coming back. So how do you act on it? You act on it by connecting to a spiritual source which will purify you. You have two options. One is chanting the names of the Lord, Hari Kirtan, discussing about the Lord, that is also Kirtan, that is also chanting. And then you have to have the empowered connection. So to get that empowered connection, you have to actually work towards it. Either you have to get sufficient amount of cleansing of your karma to come to the point of understanding, and that is usually through hardship, through some painful experiences in the world or some inner drive that you have, because everybody has that drive to actually go to the Lord, but it is getting misdirected because of the attachments to material nature. So the Lord knows when you are sincere, and then He helps you to move towards that aspect. If you don't want that, then He helps you to go wherever you want to go. So He is a wish fulfilling person. So we have said many times in our seminars that when you send healing for something, you have a healing request, be careful for what you ask, you may get it, and then it might be too late to withdraw. So the same kind of thing is here, that if you aspire for a certain position, you'll get it, but then what downside you create in your activities in that position will bring you down. So you may look at so many people who are very successful, very happy, very prominent, very proud, and this is their last shot before they are going somewhere down, and we don't want to emulate that. On Thursday, there was a very interesting question by Sang Suman, which he said, which is actually shows quite a degree of evolutionary thought process in the spiritual zone. That is it okay to, the essence was that, is it okay to limit one's career instead of chasing after things 24 hours a day, 18 hours a day? Is it okay to limit it to the point where you're comfortable and not chase after it any further? And I think that's a wonderful realization. But we pointed out that you should not be seen or perceived to be standing still. So you should move in a way that is keeping you in the same zone without excessive endeavor and effort. But you are not perceived as being something who's a liability to your organization, and that you are a valuable person. So that is a smart thing to do if you can do it. It's not difficult. If you go sideways, if you transfer laterally, horizontally into areas instead of going vertically, which means now you're 24 hours a day living that life of stress and strain and overachievement goals. So we may ask, why isn't the world doing it? Well, the world is not knowledgeable. Krishna says clearly that not everybody is going to come to it at the same time. So don't worry about the others. There are few who will make it, and in time everybody will make it, and then there will be more, because the universe is endless. So the material universe, although it is wound up from time to time, it always reappears. So it's a provision for those who want to enjoy separately. So that option is always available. Those who are finished with this, okay, end it now, enough, and you have the knowledge and the intelligence to understand it, then you absolutely get the opportunity to end it. And how do you end it? By understanding this philosophy about understanding the living entities, the material nature, the separated superior energy of Krishna in terms of the gunas, and what those activities are, and how the living entity acts according to the situation in the bodies that he is in, and yet is accompanied by the super soul who is not affected by any of this. So if somebody goes into a lower bodily form, it doesn't mean super soul has become a dog, or a leaf or a plant or whatever it is. No. The super soul is transcendental to all material nature. That is his subservient nature. Okay. So we will conclude here chapter 13, text 20 through 24. And if anyone has any questions, I will take some questions now. Where the usual questioners. The usual questioners.
Very kind.
All right.
So, there are 3-4 questions in the beginning. He says, I am situated in everyone's heart. Why did he want to come as a devotee when he already knows what's going on in everyone's heart?
It's not for him to. He didn't come here to know. He came here to teach.
Oh, that was the teaching thing.
What do you
know,
think?
They told, every time I hear this, he's come because he wanted to experience being a devotee.
Also.
I should never understood
Also.
that.
Also.
I said, but if you're
Because-
in my heart, you already know what
No.
I'm talking about.
No. He wanted to experience. The super soul sitting in your heart is observer. He is not a participant.
No, he doesn't feel.
He is not a participant. Please
No,
understand.
not feeling what I'm feeling. Doesn't he know what I'm feeling?
He knows what you are
That's
feeling.
what I mean.
Yeah, but he wants to experience it himself. Why should he experience it through you?
Oh, you mean he's not experiencing?
Yeah, he is experienced
seeing that.
because he is the source of everything. And he wants to know what is the taste that the devotees enjoy, because he doesn't have that taste as the originator.
Yeah.
So he wants to experience that. What does it feel like?
Oh, so we one up on him on something.
No, you're not.
on something.
No, you're not one up on him at all. It is he wants to enjoy the taste of being in a devotional position to himself. Now, you enjoy it as the false ego.
We also
No.
enjoy this.
Listen
We are
to
going
me.
back so
No.
that really it would be
You
more-
don't jump. Do not jump. You are enjoying that aspect of your worshipping your own superiority as a false ego. Understand that. In his case, he has no false ego. He wants to understand and appreciate directly, have the experience of being dependent on the Supreme. So he has no cares and worries. And he is enjoying that ras, the taste of associating with the divine in a devotional mood. So that you can only understand when you have that mood. So it is not anything superior, inferior. You cannot analytically understand this. But he came there, when the divine comes, he comes there to execute many purposes simultaneously. So when he wanted to come here, Radharani told him, I won't let you go on your own, because when you're in connection with the divine, you will get ecstatic and roll on the dust. So I will cover you with my form. So that's why he became golden in color. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came, is called the golden avatar, because he was glowing like gold. And that is Radharani's aspect of covering him from the material nature. So there are many depths to his appearance, but we can understand that as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to liberate the people, to give them an example as to what devotional service was about and what you need to do. And basically it was simply chanting the Maha Mantra. And he made the Maha Mantra, he recast it in a form where anybody could do it, non-Brahmin or Brahmin alike. So that is a very, very powerful understanding of why he came, the correct understanding, not that he didn't know. We cannot say he didn't know, because he is all-knowing. Only he knows everything. That is why these are considered his pastimes. These are not considered something he has to do out of karma. He is beyond karma. So these are something he does because he enjoys it. And in the process he is liberating others. So he is always doing things that help others. That's the simple way of understanding. So he is doing it to help us. He has no need to do anything. But he does, because we need him. He doesn't really need us in that sense. But also he needs us because that is his expansive nature. It is expanding himself into many, both separated and unseparated. So his personal expansions, unseparated ones, are the Vishnu avatars. His separated expansions are the living entities. So these are considered to be his external spiritual nature also. Rather his and his internal spiritual nature is the Vishnu expansions, which are not separated. So there are different layers to his spiritual nature also. The energy of his spiritual nature is also considered to be the living entity. So there are many ways that acharyas have explained this, that the living entity is the energy of the Supreme, separated energy. So whereas he is the energetic, and he is the source of all things, and we are deriving our power from him, or our life force from him. So that is the nature of the separated energy, is still got the quality of immortality and also are unborn like him, but apparently appear in time through different bodies, whereas his body's transformations are very different. So it's to be understood in that construct or paradigm, that he is not affected by these changes, whereas we are. So the material nature, which is the separated inferior energy, is the field in which we act, and the living entity is the one that actually creates all the problems in the universe.
So desire also comes from the soul itself.
The desire comes from being wrongly connected or attached to the material nature.
So between cause and effect, where do we place the desire then? Nature is said to be the cause. So
Nature is said to be the cause. What are you reading?
In the 21st paragraph, then where do we place nature, desire?
What do you mean, where do you place nature?
Therefore, whatever is happening is basically the...
It's your desire. It's your connect to the desire. If you have the desire to approach the divine, that is the sattvic nature. If you have the desire to be attached to material nature, that's rajas. And tamas is that I have the desire to enjoy my senses, that is tamas. So you will come down to that. So it is your association with the material nature, and originally coming from your desire, where you want to, what you want to do. If you want to be worshipful and respectful and reverent to the divine, then that is sattvic nature. So you will go upward. If you are going to be attached to material nature, then that is rajas. And then if you want to enjoy your senses in ignorance as to what is the consequences, then that is tamas. Meat eating, intoxication, these are examples of tamas. So there is a mixture of the three. So whichever one is predominant, then you are going in, your desires become, you can say, aligned to that nature. And when you are installing or instilling the spiritual energies, then your nature becomes more purified towards the absolute goodness. You start discovering or start revealing to yourself even your spiritual nature. So then that is finally liberating you from the material zone of existence. The activities that you do and so on. Yes, you had a question.
Sir, I just want to confirm that the inner part of the divine, the separated part, is the living entity.
Yes.
And the outer part is the material nature.
So the material nature is of, is not a living entity. It is elemental. The three material modes of nature are his separated superior energy, right? The gunas. And his inferior nature is the elemental nature, the five elements, and mind, intelligence and false ego, 8 things. And the superior separated aspect is the living entity. Okay?
Sir, are all souls same if you remove the material?
Yes, qualitatively they are the same, but each has its own personality. Yes.
That's how we all ended up making different choices.
Yes. And that is because, there are two different things. You made different choices because of your desires. But when you remove that and you all have the desire to serve the Supreme, that is your true nature, but each has his own personality. They are not robots. Yeah. So it depends on what your internal nature is and what form you connect, what is natural to you. So that will be discovered later. You may partially discover it in this lifetime, but eventually, when you are back in the spiritual zone, you will discover. Yes.
Guy has a question.
Yes.
Good morning, Master.
Good morning, Guy.
So, operating with the healing energies of Reiki and the KQ force will be actually, if I'm correct, in the mode beyond the 3 modes, being in Shuddha Sattva,
That is-
above the goodness to be pure goodness.
That is correct. That is correct. If you are working with the healing energies of Reiki and the KQ force, they are liberating energies, and liberation is only coming from the Supreme Divine. So yes, these are the Shuddha Sattva, akarmic energies. Correct.
So, to be in Sattvic mode is a step, and you have to move to the step of
That is right.
Shuddha Sattva.
That is right. So when you are doing your activities with the involvement of these energies, these healing, karmic healing energies, you are in the mode of Shuddha Sattva.
Okay.
As far as your activity is concerned. Internally, you may be very agitated or disturbed or in pain, and that is a separate thing. Or you may be very blissfully happy. So that is a separate issue. But your activity is happening in the external world. Gradually, in the internal sense, also you will come to that point. So the internal and external will balance in similarity for the greater part. Okay.
So actually, it feels quite amazing that you have this type of grace of energy that is all-encompassing and is really helping you to liberate, because it's very difficult otherwise.
It is impossible otherwise, quite frankly. Yes. It is not only very difficult, it is not possible. Because only if you understand this, and Krishna says very clearly, only my devotees know this. Only they can attain to me. Because that is the whole point. At the end of the day, you have to be a devotee of the divine, of Krishna. He is the ultimate source of everything. So, we should aim for that. Aim to please that ultimate source and to be purified enough. So when you chant the Maha Mantra, when you chant the holy names, they actually purify you to engage in His service. So that you become purified to engage, and that is the grace of Radharani. So when you are chanting the Maha Mantra, it is you are invoking her grace that please make me fit to serve Krishna just like you. So then she is very happy to push you there. So that is the grace of Radharani. Okay?
Grateful.
Okay. Yeah, bhakti is in 3 modes also. There is the mode of ignorance where you worship ghosts and spirits and tombstones and tombs, dead people and so on. Then Rajas is that you worship a politician, you worship a rich man, you worship somebody who has some material thing that you are dazzled by. And then you have the mode of goodness where you might worship the demigods, but then you have to go beyond that. You have to go to the Shuddha Sattva where you are worshipping the Supreme Divine, not the demigods. Okay? Yeah.
So in the day-to-day activity, one goes through the 3 modes.
Oh yes, of course. All the time.
And then you have to try to liberate yourself from...
Well, you start drawing your attention to your healing energy and channel the healing, and that is the process that will purify you. So you will find that over the years that would have changed you internally. Just the act of channeling the healing energy is the purification, because it then impacts all your activities. It impacts your connection. It impacts your understanding. You can always get disturbed and deviated. Oh, this has happened, that has happened, and that will become less frequent. But you can still lose it from time to time, because then you get carried away by passion, you get carried away by ignorance. That is a hazard that you will face in this world. So the only thing that keeps you safe is chanting and doing your healing. These are the two things. And understanding.
Understanding.
Yes.
I think you blessed us with that. That is the link finally, because that I see now. is
Yes,
that I'm
because
able
if
to do
you
it because
if
of
you
this.
do not have the understanding, you will drop out. So
And
that is the
constantly
problem.
listening to it.
Yes. You must constantly remind yourself. So that's why connecting with the Gita is so important. So very important. This is the fundamental. If you know nothing else and you know something of the Gita and you follow that, you don't need to do anything more. You don't need anything more.
Very liberating. Sir.
Yeah.
Very blissful to have heard that again from you.
Okay.
Because it's quite challenging when you can go out and you wonder, am I doing the right thing? Because it seems so simple sometimes.
Yes. There is no need to over endeavor. This is the point. You should always be engaged in Krishna's service, but not over endeavor in the material zone. So whatever comes of its own accord, you should accept, is the teaching. But it is not for everyone to follow artificially. You cannot do it unless you are ready. So Thursday I found that was a good connect where the understanding came up in the group. Then I expect that applies to the whole group, that the understanding is not to over endeavor. Limit one's ambitions, material ambitions, saying what for? I mean, how much more do I need? I mean, this is sufficient or not?
So that means that everyone, each one of you interact also ultimately inside feels that they also want to be set free.
Yes, everybody is looking for some. Everybody is wanting to be free of what?
Of bound.
Everybody wants to be free of trouble, but they want to enjoy trouble free. Yeah. So that is the mode of passion and ignorance, that you want to enjoy trouble. Let me enjoy as long as I have no trouble. And I see that in the affirmations healers send. I can do what I feel like, and I should get, please save me because I have just gone and done this drastic thing. And I keep constantly getting messages from people. I have done this thing, kindly save me. You already done it. What do you mean save you? I can help you, hold your hand and get you out to go through your thappars that you're going to get, the smacks that you will receive. But you're going to get the smacks because you asked for it. We can try and limit those, but there's no absolute pardon, complete pardon. Now I am trouble-free. Anesthesia. There's no full-on anesthesia. That is complete mode of ignorance. So you are in full-on anesthesia mode when you are ignorant, actually. You don't know. Blissfully unaware. Ignorance is bliss. Yes, we hear that all the time. Is it not?
So when we're doing our healing, and even if we go through the 3 modes, but if we are sending healing, then technically everything we're doing.
Your action receives the akarma energies. Yeah, of course.
Then it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you know that
Well, it matters. It matters that you will get consequences, but consequences are going to be there. But they would not normally carry on to create another birth opportunity for you in the material world. That is what the whole point is.
So if there are things happening, then it's better to withdraw and start doing more healing.
Oh, absolutely. That's the time to center yourself. Don't you see the martial artists when they're getting thrashed, they suddenly do okay, I am centering myself, and then they do all those things. So you are a martial artist also in the material world. Yes, center yourself. But if you've reiki'd it, if you have offered it to Krishna indirectly, directly, or you've thought of him and thank him, it is sanctified. So you do not get the material binding reaction.
Then it is.
But you're enjoying, so that's transcendental enjoyment.
Is there a luxury, like material luxury? This is what it means, this transcendental enjoyment?
Yeah, you can
The
enjoy.
luxury of enjoying?
You can enjoy, but in
At least me, I'm feeling very blissful if this is the word.
yeah.
Could it be this?
Yeah, you could be very happy eating food which has been offered to Krishna. You could be very happy doing your work because it is now purified. And this is your internal nature. You are doing what you want to do. You are doing what you are good at doing. You are doing what you are committed to doing.
And also what's appearing sometimes.
What's
It's
appearing?
not like work comes and then you're just doing it.
Huh?
Sometimes I don't really have a goal to the
Yeah,
duty.
sometimes you don't want to do that work, but or it's a tedious work or it's something. But this is, you can say management of your life. That there are things.
But there's also, sir, there is this, small controlling thing comes in that you want this to
Not
continue.
small, very big.
You want this to
Big
continue. No, I keep
So
stopping myself every
so
day.
things will change. Nothing remains the same.
Guy has a question again.
Okay.
Master, if I understand correctly, today is Ekadashi, and
Okay.
is that to be considered an opportunity for, let's say, a more kind of additional purification?
Yes.
In terms of the
Yes, it can be taken as an additional opportunity for purification. But we are not following that traditional system as such. But there is no harm if you do it. Absolutely no harm. But if we are offering everything to Krishna, Krishna doesn't normally fast on Ekadashi, I don't know. I never heard of him fasting on Ekadashi.
Not in general.
No, he has actually. The origin of Ekadashi is from his fasting. He was fighting one demon and couldn't defeat him. Vishnu was fighting a demon and he couldn't defeat him. Then he was taking rest, wondering what is going on, what's this fellow so strong. And then from out of his body came Ekadashi Devi, 8-handed form with weapons and brilliantly glowing. So he asked, "Who are you?" So he says, "I am your power of austerity. And you have fasted the whole day. And you have been battling and you have not drunk water, you have not eaten nothing. So I am the power of your austerity manifested." And then she killed the demon. So all material demons can be killed by Ekadashi. That is the way to understand it. And if you would like to do that, it's nice, and you should connect with the Ekadashi Mahatmya, which are the stories of the different Ekadashis that are there. There's a book called Ekadashi Mahatmya. You can look at that. It's written by a devotee in Vrindavan, the one that I have. But I'm sure you can find this online somewhere. So this is nice if you can fast.
So
But
it's
normally I have found this is feasting. There's no fasting. People are just piling up. Okay, now we are fasting, so they are going to. What do we do? So then you have all kinds of foods which are non-grain and non-pulses and so on, non-cereals, and then everything else you enjoy and cook and like with lots of ghee and paneer and milk and sweets, and then you faint and fall sick. So actual fasting means even nirjal. So at the time of the Vanvas of the Pandavas, there is one Ekadashi in June. This is called Pandav Ekadashi or Bhim Ekadashi. So he said, I can't do all this business because he was always very hungry. He's a big, huge guy in very high metabolic rate and he needed food. So he says, I'll only do one. So they said, okay, if somebody does this one Ekadashi Nirjal, then it has the effect for all the Ekadashis. So then if you do that Nirjal Ekadashi, not that I recommend it, it is something that you need to build up to practice. And but I know what you will do. You'll lie in bed, watch TV only the whole day. You won't be able to sleep. You won't be able to sleep.
You're just thinking that
You're thinking of water.
How can you? Why would that be good? Because you will be thirsty the whole time.
That's okay. So we have done Nirjal so many
It's
times.
recommended to.
And as a part of your spiritual practice, it can be recommended to do that.
June
It is purifying. Yeah, so it is like you come to detach yourself from body's needs. Then your consciousness travels upwards. That way.
So Master, it is something that you don't personally recommend on a continuous basis, or more of a kind of a...
It is entirely up to you.
Restoration?
It is your choice. If you want to do it, you do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But eventually you'll have to detach from everything related to the body. So this is one way of garnering more detachment credits, so to say, or practice. So eating less, right? Eating less, drinking less water, or Ekadashi when you don't have. Or if that's not possible, you just have fruits and water on that day. And I know people just down half a liter of juice. I'm fasting, So, okay. So if you have to work, then you need the energy. So then you can't do that kind of fast, obviously.
Okay.
But water fast, you can, because taking water is considered fasting as well as not fasting. So we have the example of Durvasa Muni, who got offended by Ambarish Maharaj, who was fasting, and then he came and he was expecting to be fed, and that the king would join him. Now the sages advised him that if you break your fast, you've lost all the efforts. So they said you can drink water, and that can be considered breaking a fast, and it can also be not breaking your fast. So he did that, and then Durvasa Muni got very upset with him, and he cursed him. So then Sudarshan Chakra appeared and chased Durvasa Muni all over the universe. He ran for his life, asking forgiveness everywhere, but ultimately he had to come back to Ambarish to get his forgiveness. So fasting, you can drink water also, is considered fasting. If you have just water, that's a fast. It's a water fast, and it will fulfill the condition of Ekadasi. If you do Nirjala, that is a more severe form of fast, and you shouldn't suddenly build up to it. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Grateful.
Okay, so we will end here today. Chapter 13, we have covered up to text 23, I think. 23. 24. So we have done text 20 through 24 today of chapter 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 All right. Thank you for attending. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Nalan Kena Rula on GettingPositiveKarmaNow.com.